Hello everybody and welcome to Woopercast. This is episode 26 for the 26th of November 2016. As always, I'm your host, Joe Yates. So, Dortmund Regionals just passed us by last weekend. I'm going to be recapping that in this episode. I'm also going to be talking about London coming up. Really just assessing the format on the whole because things keep changing very rapidly. And we got one of the biggest competitions of the year coming up in 2 weeks' time. That is going to be the London Intercontinentals. So I want to spend a bit of time in this video talking about my prediction for that tournament, necessarily what I think would be good plays based on what we've seen so far. Of course, Fort Wayne Regionals as well in America is coming up. Well, it should actually be on today by the time this podcast goes up. So, yeah, I know it's a Saturday cast. I know that's a little bit weird, but I work random days of the week, so I actually am no longer able to predict when I'm able to put up these videos or not. But hey, it's going online. That's all that matters, essentially. So, yeah, that's what we're going to be discussing today. And what I really wanted to talk about first, of course, was Dortmund Regionals that just happened last weekend. I myself did not go. I did not have the time or the money to get myself to Germany at the last minute, unfortunately, but plenty of other people did, and it looked like it was a blast all the same. Some really cool things that I want to talk about from there. First of all, what sort of stayed the same from Dortmund that we saw in Liverpool Regionals and that we've seen up until now so far with European tournaments. Yveltal is really good. Probably the best deck in format. I think it's hard to argue with that at this stage, given the sheer amount of top 8s that Yveltal has been getting over and over again here. All of the decks in top 8, let's see, just to run through the top 8 very quickly. First was Finluft with a very weird Rainbow Force list. I won't question the man because, like, if you listen to my last podcast, I wasn't really a huge. I don't think I connected with Rainbow Force Xerneas as well as I could have. And this man obviously has. I'm going to read out the Pokemon line just so you know how weird this is. 4 Xerneas, 2/2 Galvantula. Like, fair enough. Okay, that's, I ran that myself. I thought it was fine. 1 Hoopa, fair enough. 2's nice, but, 1 Hoopa, 2 Shaman, that's standard stuff. The only other Pokemon are 1 Umbreon and 1 Volcanion. There's, like, no Genesect. There's no Jolteon EX. There's no any other EXs or any other Pokemon to provide different types. It's just the Umbreon and the Volcanion. It's very strange. It's like, you'd feel like your damage output must surely be quite limited by that, but I suppose to make up for it, he just went full consistency. The list here that I'm looking at on tournamentcenter.eu does say he has 1 copy of Junior and Senior. I don't know what Junior and Senior is. I assume it's teammates. I mean, maybe this has just been badly translated or something. But yeah, other than that, it's a pretty standard list. It's just such a low Pokemon count. But anyway, fair play to him. Obviously, I can't argue with the dude. 2 Lizond as well, something nice that not every Rainbow Force list can actually fit in. 9 Fairy Energy as well. Only 3 Max Elixir as well. It's a very odd list. Honestly, the more I look at it, the more I'm like, I'd change that. But, I didn't win Dortmund Regionals. So, my opinion counts for nothing here on this. Very weird list, but fair play to him. Let's see what else we got going here. So, we also have Philip Schultz with Yveltal Garbodor. What a list. Okay? Yveltal Garbodor, you see that and you think, okay, well, I know about 58 of the cards in that list. Like, it's Yveltal. How different can it be? Where are we now? I have it here. Okay. 4 Yveltal EX. 4 of them. A 3/2 Garbodor line. One of the Evolutions Mewtwo's. Really cool card, actually. I've been playing around with it a bit. It's just like a DC new 20 plus 20 more for each energy attached to your opponent's Pokemon. And then 1 Shaman. That's it. Only 1 Shaman. Just 4 Yveltal EX. It's just Yveltal feat consistency cards. It's hilarious. And of course, he's got 4 Sycamore, 3N, Ace Trainer, Delinquent. This is nuts. This is absolutely nuts. He's even got things like Rune now for things like Town Map in this thing. Only 2 Trainers Mail as well. I don't know how he came to these conclusions, but he did come second. That's just hilarious. It's like, Yveltal EX is a good attacker. There aren't any lightning types around. Just use this. Why not? I imagine this man's Giratina matchup is phenomenal. Like, holy crap. That's hilarious. Speaking of no electric types around, Raikou Electrode, a really weird deck, also makes top 8 in this. I believe it only finished in the top 8 or top 4, was it? I think it was top 4. It got actually beaten by Yveltal. I believe it was by a... No, it would have been top 8, because it got beaten by a deck with Yveltal Break in it. I believe this is Alessandro Cremasoli's list. Italian player. From what I learned from Liverpool as well, is that the Italians really like Yveltal break. There was a bunch of Italian people playing Yveltal break at that tournament, and it seems that carried over here as well. And apparently the break was really good because it essentially lets you evolve, and then you can still attack a Jolteon. And you also survive a hit from it because Jolteon only hits 140 with weakness. If it doesn't have a Fury Belt on it, it doesn't matter because, you're Yveltal, you're Fright Knight. So yeah, Jolteon can't kill you in one hit, and it means that you can attack through it because you're not a basic anymore. So that came in really handy for him, apparently. I feel like maybe the Umbreon did as well, just because it's not weak to lightning, but I did not see the game. So what else we got here? Yeah, one Flare Grunt in it and everything. Yeah, it's a lot of like 2 Enhanced Hammer, 1 Flare Grunt as well. A lot of 1 Delinquent, a lot of disruption in these lists too. Really fun though. I don't think it was even necessarily attacking with the break much. I think it was more just like it's evolving out of it. It's the extra HP. It's good in the mirror because your opponents can't return KO you as easy with their own Yveltal Fright Knights. And also on top of that, it's just, if you do get the attack off, it's one hell of an attack. Really cool list. I believe that was top 8 as well. Other decks that came in top 8. Also a Jirachi in that list too, a promo Jirachi, and we are seeing an awful lot more of that. Not an awful lot more of that, but it's cropping up here and there. We saw it in the winning list for Liverpool, and it's something that I've been putting into a couple of my own lists now as well, just because I run Basic Energy, Ranger isn't seeing a lot of play, Giratina is, so you know what, let's give this thing a shot. Yeah, really, really cool stuff. Other than that, it's Yveltal Garbodor, Yveltal Garbodor. And the only other weird list there is, let's get the name right here. Sorry, just 1 second. I just don't want to get the dude's name wrong. There you go, Alexander Wagner, who ran Regice, Glaceon, Garbodor, and Hammers. I think the Hammers are what makes this deck for me. I don't think this concept would function without the Hammers. It's just 4 Regice, 2 Glaceon EX, 3 Glaceon EX, my mistake. And then 2 Shaman and a 2/2 Garbodor line. Then some Hammers, really basic stuff, but I suppose you just run into a lot of matchups where both those attackers run into, put themselves in a good position. And like I just said, Ranger's kind of not seeing any play right now. So you're in a good spot if you're running a deck like this. Interesting that he chose to go for the Garbodor over the Vileplume. I believe this is just so he could then run things like 4 Crushing Hammer, 2 Enhanced Hammer, stuff like that. Also the Fury Belts as well could be super annoying. Mostly just for making it harder to 1-hit KO the Regice. And then you're in a position where you need to 2-hit KO it, which is like 2 Rangers as opposed to 1. My one apprehension with running the Garbodor over the Vileplume would be that a lot of decks are running Escape Rope right now. And Escape Rope is another way that you can beat Regice as opposed to Lizond. But I suppose the theory is that'll work once or twice. It's not going to work 4 times because this guy has got 4 Regice. Is there Max Elixir in here? I didn't see it. It looks like there's no Max Elixir, but that's fair enough. I mean, I don't know how you'd fit it in when you've also got the 4 Crushing Hammer. It's just 5 Water Energy and a Ninja Boy as well. So I assume the plan was just power up, maybe... It doesn't even look like he'll get that many powered up, but 5 Water Energy just seems really, really low, but... Damn, this is a deck I have to play around with. This is a deck that I absolutely have to build and see out. Try it out for myself, because I like the idea a lot. 3 Glaceon EX is such a high count as well. That's nuts. Anyway, yeah, really, really cool top 8, though. Outside of the unholy amount of Yveltal. But other than that, it's a really cool top 8. Really interesting stuff there. The point is, if you're going to a major tournament, have a plan for Yveltal, because you're going to face it, especially if you plan on doing well. And that's something else I kind of wanted to talk about, is decks that make top 32 and decks that make top 8. There's a big, big difference in those decks. We're seeing a lot of Greninja and Volcanion making top 32s. There were a lot in Liverpool. There's a lot here as well. Yeah, there's a lot of Greninja all the way down here. Volcanion all the way down here as well. We're seeing a lot of these things. We're not seeing a lot of them make top 8. I don't think either of those decks have actually made a top 8 yet. Although, did one Greninja make top 8 in Liverpool? It might have. I can't remember. But the point is that they're sort of relegated to this position here. And it's really that they're great in Swiss because you play such a much broader variety of things in Swiss necessarily. I Okay, you know what? I don't have a huge amount of experience with Volcanion or Greninja. The best example I can give for this is Houndoom Mill, because someone did make 32. Martin Janu of Czech Republic did make top 32 with Houndoom Bumblebee in this. Obviously not my own Houndoom Durant build, but I respect anyone playing Houndoom because it's a really good deck right now. Your Giratina matchup is amazing. Your Darkrai Tina matchup is amazing. Not that that's very big over here. Rainbow Road matchup is really good. Yveltal matchup is very winnable. You can beat things like Mega Rayquaza, like Volcanion. Well, you can't beat Volcanion. What am I on about? Yeah, you can beat things like Mega Rayquaza. You can beat things like Mega Gardevoir. You have positive matchups like pretty like solidly around the board, which is always a good thing to have. The only issue with it is there are two matchups that you really cannot win. Volcanion and Greninja are those two matchups. They are awful. They're just horrible. I would say even Regice, Glaceon, Garbodor would be way easier to win than these other ones, because at least they can't one-shot you. The Greninja is horrible because even if they didn't hit for weakness, you can't get rid of their energy because they just Moonlight Slash it back to their own hand. We need Team Skull Grunt for that, which can't wait for that card to come out. Volcanion as well is horrible, obviously, because they're a water type and they hit you for weakness, and you're just not winning that at all. Yeah, those are two really, really horrible matchups. You can make it through Swiss round only playing maybe one of those, maybe one or two of those, and if you win the other like 7 of your games, you're in top 32, no question. It's once you get into that position, once you get into the top 32, now you're looking at a field where 50% of it, maybe more, is potentially a mixture of Volcanion and Greninja. And that's what you need to be worried about. That's where you have to start thinking, right, I need a deck that doesn't lose to either of these things, that can still make it through Swiss. And that's probably why Yveltal is doing so well to an extent. Although I really don't know what Yveltal's plan is against Greninja. I suppose Garbodor, actually. What am I on about? That's your plan against Greninja. Yeah, but that's the point I'm trying to make, is that I think, and I'm sure Martin knew this going into the tournament. I'd love to actually hear his thoughts on this. But I think if you're playing a deck like Houndoom, I don't think you expect to make top 8. I think top 32, yes. Absolutely, it's a very real possibility because that deck is good. Anything with hammers and a really simple attacker is good. Okay, and Houndoom is that in a nutshell. But no, I just don't think it's the kind of deck that can ever see a proper, like, big success at a tournament like this. And that's the biggest thing putting me off playing it at London. You know, I mean, I'd love to have a really good chance at making top 32 in London, but I'd also like to have a really good chance at winning London, because why else would I be going if I'm not going to try and win the whole thing? So that's the one thing that's putting me off playing the deck for that. Even though I'm really happy with my list and stuff, I really enjoy playing the deck. It's just like, these are the things you have to consider when you're going to tournaments that are this big. There's a big difference between decks that make top 32 and decks that make top 8. And there's a reason Yveltal keeps making top 8, like I said. So yeah, that's an interesting point. And the same thing applies to Volcanion and Greninja and stuff like that as well. And like, they get to a point where they just cancel each other's out. Like, you get to the top 32 and a Garbodor. And that's just, you know, obviously a huge problem for both of those decks. So, the other thing sort of popping up in a bigger numbers now is Giratina Garbodor. It didn't make top 32 anywhere, but it made top 8 at Liverpool. Robin Schulz, the guy who actually invented the deck, whose ethos was essentially, I like Toad Tina, but we don't have Toad anymore. But I can just throw in another Tina and a Magearna and then go for it. We're actually seeing a lot of Giratina hammers just pop up from other players now. There was, I think, 4 in top 32, and it's climbing. It's a really good deck. I didn't enjoy playing it personally, but I never really enjoyed playing Toad Tina either. Which is funny, because I loved Straight Toad, but Toad Tina I wasn't a fan of. I don't know why. But now it's popping up more and more. Joe Bernard, of course, of Omnifolk played it. Cool list with 3 Metal Energies to attack with the Magearna to help him out with like Fairy type matchups and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. I don't know, it's a scary prospect that this thing's coming more and more into the fray. And it means the Magearna is a really great answer to Jirachi. It now sort of means like you need an enhanced hammer and a Jirachi to deal with a Giratina or to put yourself back on level terms. And looking at all these things and adding them all up in my head, it's making me think that maybe Rangers should be coming back into a few decks. Because, you know, like we said, we're seeing Glaceon. There's, I think, 3 Vileplume based decks in here. Vileplume toolbox decks, I mean. We're seeing things like that. And it's like, you may want to run a Ranger to deal with these things, because these are all decks that are very afraid of Ranger. So it's worth thinking about, is all I'm saying. I don't know, it's weird because Ranger's a card I kind of dismiss a lot, because I think, there's just other cards that do the same job but better and are more versatile in different situations. But I think sometimes just having a supporter that you can just play and go, yep, now I'm out of that lock. Given the amount of locks that we now have in the format, the amount of times where it could be useful, I don't know, I think Ranger could definitely start seeing a little more play. Because, if all these Giratina decks are running Magearna, you can't flow Stone your Trubbish, you can't play your Silent Labs, it's probably going to have to be Ranger is a way better answer than Jirachi. So these are just things you need to think about, I guess. But again, if your deck's weak to Giratina, you're probably not beating Giratina Garbodor anyway. I don't know, it's a scary deck that's just getting more and more popular as the weeks go on, and that's a little frightening to me, because I don't like playing against it. Anyway, yeah, I think that was kind of an interesting point, though. And it's something that it would be interesting to see if it carries over to America as well. Like I said, Fort Wayne regionals are on this weekend. I do want to see what kind of decks get played at Fort Wayne, because we haven't seen a lot of Dark Rhytina. I'm going to double check this list, but I don't think any Dark Rhytina has made top 32. Not a single Dark Rhytina makes top 32 at Dortmund. I've said this before and I'll say it again. It's an extremely American deck. It's a deck that it just didn't translate over to Europe. It's a deck that we kind of have answers for here, I guess, in our meta, maybe that they don't over in America. I don't know. I think it's a really cool little interaction, and I think that's all going to come to a head in London. I really want to know how many Americans are coming over, because that will affect the amount of Dark Rhytina there. I would predict, at least, greatly. Which, to me, is a little bit weird and a little bit odd. I don't know, because a lot of the decks I've been thinking of is like, oh, this is a bad Dark Rhytina matchup. Ooh, who cares, because there's no Dark Rhytina running around anymore. I don't know. I don't think it's in a position to make a comeback. I think there's too much of Yveltal to kind of stop it. And I think Yveltal is just so good against Giratina that maybe that'll push it out a bit. I don't know. Damn, it's a weird interaction. That's all I'm saying. And it'd be weird to see if it does show up in London, given the amount of American players who are probably planning on coming over. I would like to see huge numbers for that tournament, at least. And we're getting official streams for it as well, which is great. All 3 days of the tournament are being streamed on Pokemon.com, and that's what we want to see, because we love having support for our game. And we didn't have streams for Liverpool or Dortmund, because no one actually got around to doing it. So this is going to be a nice change, I guess. The other thing that hasn't really seen any play at all is Mega Mewtwo. Again, I'll be watching Fort Wayne. I'll be watching to see if this thing does actually show up in any capacity, but Mewtwo has just fallen off so much, man. It's one of those decks that, it's a sort of a gimmick. I don't want to insult the deck because it's still very strong, but it's it is kind of a gimmicky concept in general. It's the whole deck is based around don't one-hit KO my Mewtwo. And, if you can, you lose. And things like Rainbow Force can one-hit KO the Mewtwo. Volcanion can one-hit KO the Mewtwo. Oh, wait, Garbodor, yeah. What am I on about? Look, the point is that it's I don't know, and it feels weird that it's kind of dropped off the play. I think Fright Night is such a big issue for it that it's kind of been sort of forced into the background. I mean, Fright Night's a big issue for Megas anyway, and if you're looking through this, how many Mega decks actually did make top 32? We're seeing one Mega Rayquaza, Cedric Guan, the guy who won Liverpool Regionals, actually played this again for Dortmund and placed in top 32. We are seeing one Mega Gardevoir from Nina, or I'm not sure about the second name, it only gives me Nina or here. Top 32, Mega Gardevoir, another deck that sort of dropped off a little bit here. There's so much Fright Night that's keeping it out, which is kind of funny. As well, Mega Gardevoir, we all saw that Dragonite's coming in, Rattatas coming in, this is going to be a big deck, this is going to be great, and then all of a sudden, no. It kind of just fell flat. Really weird to think. There aren't even any metal decks in top 32 that could stop it. Apart from, of course, I don't know, Joe's list with the Magearna and the metal energies. It's just really weird that the megas that we thought would sort of dominate after Night March left really hasn't panned out that way at all. Fright Night has been putting in the work against them. At least I assume that's part of it anyway. Yeah, on top, I don't know. I think that's just really, really cool to actually notice. It's just how few megas we've actually got at the moment. Probably don't play Klefki in your decks then anytime soon, unfortunately. Yeah, this is really cool though. I'm happier with a less mega intensive format personally. I don't generally like playing mega decks a lot of the time. I think it's a little frustrating. There aren't a whole lot of megas that I enjoy playing, really. I just think the whole Spirit Link mechanic is a little frustrating to play yourself. And of course, Fright Night is everywhere. Like, I mean, even when I went to Liverpool, so many of my rounds were against the Veltal. You look at the top 32, top 8, and so many of them are Veltal. And that's just an issue. That's like 4 free prizes before you even get an attack off, essentially. Especially if the Veltal player runs hot, because then it's scary. That's the only thing that a Veltal loses to, is itself when it dead draws. So yeah, I don't know, maybe that's why Megas have been kept out of the format for a little bit. Maybe also the best Garbodor partner around just isn't Mega Mewtwo anymore. I don't know, not a Mega Mewtwo expert, but it has been dropping off in play drastically, which is pretty crazy, given how much hype it had anyway at the start of the season. And while Mega Rayquaza is making a comeback, Mega Mewtwo is just sort of sitting in the sidelines. I don't know. Maybe Fort Wayne will change that because it's such a different metagame, because it's a whole different continent. Maybe it won't. We'll have to wait and see. One thing I did want to talk about, though, you know what's really good in the format right now? Vespiquen. Yeah, Vespiquen's very, very good right now. I promise you this. Reason being, you can run it with Raichu, and Yveltal is everywhere. And Raichu is good against the Veltal for very obvious reasons. And the thing is, you might think, okay, well, they just use Veltal DX with the Fury Belt on it, but now we have a Rattata, and Rattata is a Pokemon, and Vespiquen runs lots of Pokemon, so it fits into the deck really easily. And you can just get rid of the Fury Belt and then Circle Circuit for the KO, or you can just be like, fine, I don't mind, I'll two-shot you and Sky Return for the KO and force you to go through all 6 prizes. It's actually a really solid matchup for you. They can't even really stall out with Fright Night because everything has free retreat or a cheap retreat cost that you can pay with basic energies if you want to run a deck like that. Karen a problem? Not really. Mega Rayquaza and Mega Gardevoir are dropping a little bit in play, and these are the only 2 decks that would play Karen. And even the successful lists of those 2 decks aren't running Karen. And even if they were, you can run Raichu to beat the Rayquaza player, or you can run Magearna and Metal Energy to beat the Gardevoir players. I really like the Magearna Metal Energy one because it allows me to run Promo Jirachi, but like I said, I think people are finding ways around Promo Jirachi. I don't know, Vespiquen's always just been such a huge metagame call in terms of how you build the deck. And at the moment, it's like trying to build that deck it's interesting, I'll say that, because there's so many things that you need to beat. The biggest issues for me was like, I could do something really crazy and then I'd be like, yeah, I'll drop Hexmaniac, but now I lose to Greninja and Volcanian's a little harder. Or you can say, okay, I'll put in the Hexmaniac, but now I'm not running Ranger, and Dark Tina is a little harder. And stuff like this goes on. It got a lot of interesting interactions, and it requires an awful lot of testing to get a right list for. So I'm not expecting necessarily anyone to have one for Fort Wayne this weekend. But if Vespiquen pops up in London, and moreover, if I am playing it, because I probably will, because it's really, really good. And you can hit big numbers from very early on in the game. And especially if you just start off with like Raichu and you start using Circle Circuit a couple of times. You can weaken your opponent. You can do like 100 damage turn 2 with Raichu. Now you can follow that up with another Circle Circuit for a KO. A Sky Return for a KO if you did it to an Onyx. Or you can follow it up with a Bee Revenge, because by now you're probably only doing like 80 damage with Bee Revenge, but that's enough because you've already done 100. The way it works out is actually really, really good. So no, I'm really happy with Vespiquen at the moment. I think it's a really solid deck. I think, again, like I said, it requires an awful lot of testing. Rainbow Road, what's your matchup like that? Really easy. You're an Onyx. You can power up your attackers way quicker than they can. And you have a lot more EX targets to pick off on the bench than they do. So I feel like that's a really easy matchup. If Veltal, like I said, you got to run hot with Raichu. And like with any of your matchups, you're forcing them to take 6 prizes. So that's fine. You can just power through and try and like beat them that way. And if Veltal, at some point, if they try and attack with an Veltal EX, Raichu's going to be there to take the KO. The Glaceon thing, you can run a Mew EX, or you can run a Ranger to try and get around Glaceon. I think Ranger's better because it allows me to get around Tina as well. And also, like, the one deck with Glaceon here also runs Garbodor, which I don't want to come up against because then my Mew EX won't work. So, I don't know. I think you can also run, one of the really cool things that I am doing at the moment, is the new Evolutions Mewtwo. What you can do with that is you can attack with it. And against Giratina, you hit for like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You hit for 100. And essentially, you hit for 100. And like if you Ranger, attach a DCE, hit for 100. And they can't find an enhanced hammer or something like that. Now, if it's Giratina hammers, they will. If it's Dark Retina, they won't. So I don't even know if it's worth teching for that. But essentially, you can hit it. They can hit you back. They only do 100. You don't get knocked out because you got 130 HP, and you can do another KO. You can shoot. You can hit them again, take the KO, and that can be interesting to force them into a position like that. The other cool thing about it as well, against Glaceon, 3 energy on them. You hit them for 80. Against Vileplume Box, that's enough. You hit them for 80, and then you hit them for 80 again. That's 160. Plus, like, Rainbow Energy damage is 170, and that's a KO. And again, they can't one-hit KO you because you've got 130 HP. If you really have to, you can follow it up with a Sky Return for the knockout, which is really nice because you can serve a double colorless and you pick a Shaman off your board. That's actually one thing that I'm not sure how the Glaceon Garbodor deck plays around, is how do you play around Sky Return looping? Like, I don't know, maybe Delinquent. Does he run Delinquent? Yeah, he runs Delinquent. Okay, maybe it's that. Maybe you just, like, I don't know, Delinquent. Maybe you N and pray. I don't know, I feel like that's weird, because you can't actually one-shot a Shaman with this deck. Interesting to note. But anyway, I think Vespiquen's really well placed at the moment. Against Volcanion, again, you can outpace them. If you run Hex, that's great, because you force them, if they want to take a KO, you force them to attack with the EX Volcanion. Especially if you do it early on enough, when they don't have enough energy on a baby Volcanion to start attacking with its second attack, you can force them with the EX to go in, start attacking with that, and then you come in, and you take 2 prizes, because you knocked out an EX. Like, you'll be trading 1 prize for a lot of the game, but eventually you reach a point where you're able to just be like, yeah, let me take 2 prizes here. You can't give up a single Shaman in that matchup, though. It's crucial. What else we got here? Yeah, it's just really well placed at the moment, I think. The only matchup you don't want to face is Giratina Garbodor. And again, for that being the only matchup that you really, really don't like, I think that's all right. Again, Greninja, I think you need Hex Maniac to guarantee the win against it. Otherwise, it's a little iffy. They just reach a point where they have a break in play, and they're just like, kill that, especially because they're running Burst Balloons now. Rattata's great against Bursting Balloon, but it's not going to be enough to win you a whole game against a Greninja. Eventually, they just reach a point where you have damage on your board, and they can start picking it off with abilities, and that's super annoying. But other than that, that's my thoughts. I think, guys, don't sleep on the B right now. That's just one of the points I wanted to make at the end of this video, is just don't sleep on the B. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for this cast. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back next week with my Sun and Moon review. Well, I got Moon, but I'm going to be reviewing it nonetheless. Team Rowlet, by the way, obviously. Only correct answer. I was going to review it this week, but then I remembered that the American release date was different from the European release date, so I've only been playing it for like 2 days. So anyway, it's going to be next week. Week after that, good chance there won't be a podcast, because I'm obviously going to London for the Intercontinentals, and that's going to take up from Thursday all the way through to Sunday, so I'm probably not going to get time to make a podcast. But I don't know, hopefully you'll see me on stream playing at Top Tables. That's the plan, at least, anyway. Yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.